Welcome back into another White Sox report from just another year, Chicago White Sox. I am Matt Dilger, and we are less than 24 hours away from White Sox baseball being back. The White Sox made some roster moves today and finalized their opening day roster, and Brooks Baldwin went to the IL. So if you're ready for White Sox baseball, hit that like button. If you're excited for opening day tomorrow, comment "Go Sox" down below. This is going to be a great season, and we are very excited for it. The opening day roster was set. The White Sox made a few interesting moves. One we knew coming was Corey Lee was DFA'd after the signing of Reese McGuire. I think we've all got our opinions on this. I don't really totally understand it other than the possibility that Corey Lee could get through waivers right now because of all the chaos around baseball with players going through waivers, so many from every team. Maybe they think they can sneak him through now and they won't be able to in a few weeks when Kyle Teel returns. Curtis Mead being DFA'd was a bit of a surprise, if only that it seemed like he was the only other backup infielder to have a chance at making the roster. And then the White Sox kept 6 outfielders, which is interesting because it really says a lot about how the team's going to use the roster. Luis Angel Acuna was really touted as the everyday center fielder, but clearly based on the roster construction, that's not going to be the case. He's definitely going to play some infield. I would say anytime for sure Mydroth or Colson needs a day off, you'll see Luis Angel Acuna in there to start the season, and then probably move Colson to third and Acuna to short if Vargas is not playing. The other thing it says to me a lot is that Andrew Benintendi is going to be DHing at the start of the season quite a bit, at least until Teel is back. And we'll probably at that point see some more 2-catcher lineups, one of them DHing. I think this is probably good for the actual game-by-game performance of the team because Benintendi is not a good outfielder. And there's certainly some room to show some growth on the defensive side in the outfield. And having a guy like Benintendi really hurts that. Everson Pereira is a guy who a lot of people thought would make the roster, and I think really this buys them some more time to make a decision on what they want to do with those 3 guys, because those 3 won't be on the team all season. I think that's a certainty at this point. There's a possibility that Reese McGuire stays on the roster when Kyle Teel comes back and they keep 3 catchers, but we'll see how that goes. I think we're going to see a lot of different lineups as far as outfield construction from manager Will Venable in an effort to try and maximize the value that each player can bring, which is a good thing for the White Sox. And it's good for them to get used to that because with all the prospects that the White Sox have, especially in AA and now AAA, with that AA team being very good for the last couple of seasons, we're going to have to see matchup-based lineups more frequently than your set-it-and-forget-it lineups, and especially like the 2021 roster, which, first of all, had too many first basemen, but also just had a lot of guys who could only really play one position. Please subscribe to the page as we're here one day before opening day. We need 49 more to get to our first goal of 100 subscribers. Brooks Baldwin was placed on the 10-day IL alongside Kyle Teel. Baldwin was injured in spring, and they're taking it slow with him. They want him to fully recover from the elbow injury that he suffered, and I think that that's probably for the best and probably pretty smart to start the season for a couple of reasons. First and foremost being the health of Brooks Baldwin, a guy who plays all over the field, and the White Sox feel like could be a part of their future. Brooke Fletcher said on March 12th, Will Venable told me Brooks Baldwin got imaging on his elbow and there's some inflammation there. He's still being evaluated in his day-to-day. They're having several specialists look at it to get more information. And Will went on to say that it's similar to what he felt last year. So again, this is the White Sox first and foremost being careful with a young player that they have high hopes for in Brooks Baldwin. It's important that he's available for more of the season than it is for him to be available at the start of the season. The other thing is, as I kind of touched on before, it gives the team time to decide on Hill, Pereira, and Peters. Peters has minor league options, so he's probably the first one to go if all things are equal and he's not a huge standout while one of the other guys struggles. Hill is a great defender and he's very fast. So I would expect to see him a lot in late game situations as a defensive replacement and a pinch runner. But I don't know how often we'll see him in the lineup. I certainly wouldn't expect to see him every day. Pereira is a guy that they picked up who has no options either. So if they decide to part with one of these guys, they're probably gone. I mean, there's a chance they can get through waivers. Probably Hill more than Pereira. Pereira's a pure upside play. If he can have a good start to the season, he can probably stick around for a while. But it's important, really important for him to get off to a good start. Otherwise, we're probably seeing a very limited time of Pereira as a member of the Chicago White Sox. Hill is a guy who's been bopped around the majors a little bit. And again, he's a defense and speed guy. So he's got a place on a roster. He's a guy who we can see, being that final piece, the last position player on a roster that could be talented to try and, use him as a pinch runner, especially on a day where you see Caro or Teel DHing further down the line this season. You could see an opportunity to put Hill in as a pinch runner for one of those guys late in games. And that's a really important weapon for Will Venable to use. On the pitching front, a few interesting notes. Jedrickson Páez makes the roster on opening day. He was a Rule 5 pick. I don't know how much we can expect out of him. He is more of a long-term project. He has not pitched above high A ball, so he's skipping AA and AAA, which means the only reason he made this roster is because they'll lose him if they don't keep him. I would expect to see him pitching pretty much exclusively in low leverage and long relief situations, at least for the first couple of months. The White Sox view him as a starter down the line, so he's a guy that I think they really like and want to keep around. He's an interesting pitcher. He's got some good stuff. He's super young, and I think that what we'll see out of him is, again, an innings eater, a guy who's going to pitch when they're down a bunch of runs and they need someone to suck up some innings. And if he performs well, he can earn his spot up the leverage ladder. But I would expect to see him at the bottom of the leverage ladder for the majority of the season, and they probably don't want to put too much on him. They also have 3 lefties in the bullpen, which I think is an interesting decision and really probably a pretty good one because it gives Venable a lot of options, especially because I anticipate Newcomb being a late inning guy to go along with Grant Taylor and Seranthony Dominguez, who is slated in to be the closer to start the season. Speaking of that bullpen, it really does have an opportunity to be much stronger this season. The loss of Mike Vassell really hurts that particular sentiment because he was so exceptional out of the bullpen last season. But the back end was a struggle in 2025. The White Sox gave up a lot of late inning leads, and they were absolutely terrible in one-run games. I think when we see Seranthony Dominguez at the back end, it gives the team a lot more options. Also, I don't expect him to be the closer all season. I think Grant Taylor is the best pitcher in the bullpen, and I think we'll see that kind of play out throughout the season. However, the White Sox are almost serving 2 masters with Grant Taylor because they still view him long-term as a starter. So I do anticipate them bringing him on for more multi-inning efforts in an effort to build his innings base up going into 2027. Now, if he is just an exceptional bullpen arm, that's not to say they will move him, but we've seen them do this before under different leadership for the most part. But Garrett Crochet, Michael Kopech, and then go all the way back to Chris Sale. We've seen the White Sox put future starters into the bullpen and pitch them in high leverage. And that's a thing I think we're going to see a lot out of Grant Taylor. He has exceptional stuff. He throws really hard, and he's got a lot of movement on his pitches, and he's going to be a really interesting guy to watch out for. Look out for our preview and predictions episode with myself and my colleague Matt Mirabella coming up tomorrow morning as we get ready for opening day. Go White Sox.